Hello and welcome to the latest Talking Bullocks podcast. We're here today, two of us Bullocks, and we're talking particularly about football and the African continent. And as you can see, if you're watching, Chris Bullock is currently in Ivory Coast or Côte d'Ivoire off the back of the AFCON final between Ivory Coast and Nigeria just last night at this time of recording. And we just wanted to take the opportunity in his busy schedule before he flies back to Cape Town just to quickly catch up with Chris. We did try to do it during the games. Unfortunately, we're not quite dynamic enough to do that yet. There wasn't any signal, or at least any decent connection. Understandably, in a capacity crowd of I think 65,000, was it, Chris?
Yeah, about 60,000 for both the semi-final and the final. So impossible to get network. Unfortunately, we did try to do a recording from the ground, like you say, which would have been great because atmosphere is incredible. I mean, really good to have done it. But yeah, just unfortunately, even in Europe and everywhere across the world, when you're at big events like that, you can't quite get the network, unfortunately.
Yeah, and exactly. I'd say, I mean, we'll try again in 2 years' time in Morocco, but I would say, a fair comparison with Europe or anywhere around the world is probably my impression, at least watching the game last night on TV. It certainly seems in the end at least from sitting there on the couch, it looked like a very organised tournament and very credible finalists and a pretty exciting game all in all. And some really good kind of fairy tale stories along with it as well. So all in all, at least my own little Western view was that it's quite a good impression and of African football where it's at.
Yeah, I think it was a really interesting tournament actually. Certainly in terms of drama, I think everyone can say it had a lot of drama from the beginning to the end with a lot of things going on in the game, some really interesting storylines, a lot of teams that people probably thought would go far and the tournament didn't. And then some teams that maybe people thought would go out earlier and have made the latter stages. And I think it's made for an exciting tournament, an unpredictable tournament. I certainly think the final last night was a good level. I think it probably was the right two teams that made the final. I certainly think Ivory Coast, after the start they made in the group stages, ended up coming on strong at the right time, and probably their performance in the final last night probably was probably a good reflection of them being probably the strongest team in the tournament and probably made them deserved winners of AFCON. So obviously also good that the hosts won. What an atmosphere at the stadium last night, and getting back to the hotel because I mean we're probably about 20 kilometres from the stadium here, and everybody was out in the streets celebrating. I don't think anybody was still in their houses after the game finished last night. So really, really good, amazing atmosphere. Probably the right result on the night, and probably the best result for the tournament. So yeah, I think all in all, really successful. I know CAF are very. I spoke to some of my friends and contacts here at CAF, actually in Ivory Coast, and a lot of them have talked about how happy they are with the tournament. I think one thing that in terms of the level of football, maybe there is still a lot of improvement that's needed, but I think it's growing the right way. But I think the thing that's really important off the back of this is that people don't lose sight of the fact there's still a lot that needs to be done in terms of development of football on the continent, in terms of infrastructure. All the key pillars really to grow football on the continent still needs to be a lot of focus and a lot of investment into that. But certainly, all in all, really enjoyable tournament, amazing experience. Even at times, some of the challenges getting into stadiums and stuff probably shows there's a little bit of work still to be done. But all in all, really, really positive experience, and I think everybody will be happy with how the AFCON has gone.
Yeah, I mean, talking of investment and infrastructure, obviously in previous podcasts, it's one of the kind of key pillars I think you described to us about what's essential for the growth and development of football in the continent. I think one of the things that was picked up by the commentator at the end of the match last night on the awards ceremony was actually the president, I think, of Ivory Coast was seen in quite a favourable light on that event, and of course he is going to take the limelight a little bit, I imagine. But one of the things they mentioned was that's partly because of the investment that they seem to have made in preparation for these finals. So would you say that they've set a good example for other countries in the continent?
I think if we talk about stadiums and infrastructure in that respect, I'd say Ivory Coast done really, really well. And they probably could host bigger tournaments based on infrastructure in terms of stadiums. I think a lot of investment's gone into making good modern stadiums with all the amenities that you need. Really, really good stadiums. The one where the final was last night is 60,000. Um, Very smart. You can generally access once you're in the stadium area or concourses is not is good. Um, there are challenges still, like most African countries, in terms of access to stadiums and infrastructure in terms of roads, transport, that sort of thing. And I think that's not really a football problem. That's more of a general sort of African problem. But I think that's where there's still challenges. Ironically, they talk about giving the president praise for the investment. But getting to the stadium last night, it took us 3 hours, 3.5 hours to get there because they closed the main roads for the president to be able to get free use of it to the stadium. So we ended up having to go round through pretty much a jungle, gravel road jungle, to get right round the other way to the stadium. That probably took about 2 hours longer than it should have done. So that's probably quite ironic. But the stadiums have been great, and talking again to friends of mine from CAF here, they talk about how good the training grounds are, and definitely one of the best places they've held a tournament at in Africa. So I think both on and off the field, Ivory Coast have really shown that they're doing a lot of things the right way. You see most of their players are playing in Europe, and again, they look to me like if you take the performance last night in the final and maybe in the last couple of games in the knockout stages, that they've got a lot of quality, a lot of players play at a high level, and probably are ahead of a lot of the other sides. And I think Ivory Coast have come out of this with a lot of credit, definitely.
Yeah, excellent. And is it? I mean, you described the atmosphere after the game as you came out the stadium and travelled back to the hotel. Again, last night the commentators were kind of asking the questions of some kind of former players representing the countries. Is this going to do a lot for the country of Ivory Coast in terms of unity and the general spirit in the country? I think. Had Ivory Coast lost last night, I imagine the atmosphere would have been quite different, and even your travel back to the hotel might have been more difficult, perhaps. Is it that?
Definitely in terms of atmosphere, the win definitely helped. It was a good atmosphere throughout the game, really. But even when Nigeria were leading, but I think it was another level after the equaliser, and then again after the winner and after the game, and certainly, to experience that on the streets was something else last night. But look, one thing that I've noticed with Ivory Coast compared to a lot of countries I've gone to in Africa is actually it looks like a well-run country in general. I can't talk about the political situation in the country, but certainly you feel safe here. Everybody gets on with things. There's been a lot lower sign of sort of poverty. And even, one or two things, and you can link this back to football and everything potentially as well, the effect it has on football. But I think in terms of lifestyle here, there's certainly less of a drinking culture than a lot of places I've seen across Africa, and certainly in Southern Africa. And I actually think that maybe answers some questions as to why maybe players have done well from this part. Not, it's just a small part of it, but that's something that came across quite interesting to me. I think the lifestyles are a lot different to what you see in Southern Africa, for example. But I just think everybody. It's very expensive here, by the way. It's probably one of the most expensive countries, not just in Africa, one of the most expensive countries I've been to, and I don't think that's just an AFCON effect. I think in general it is an expensive country, but it's a strong economy by African standards, I think. So that's been really interesting to see, how what the country is like, and maybe again it maybe explains the success on the field. It maybe explains why a lot of players are more prepared to or more ready to play in Europe and at higher levels of football. So I think that's been very interesting. So I mean, I think winning tournaments, especially as a host country, will always unify a country. It will always bring people together. But did Ivory Coast need that as much as other countries? From what I've seen, probably not. It's been really interesting about what a good country Ivory Coast is.
Yeah, and of course, it wasn't that long ago that South Africa itself, where you're currently based, hosted the World Cup, and we know that that doesn't all result in kind of long-term change in countries just to have one tournament. So I guess we always have to take it with a pinch of salt. But I'm quite interested in what you said about the drinking culture, and now that you've been inspired to return to the south of the continent as a teetotal, I think that in itself is a transformation for you. But talking of kind of good, healthy habits, what they also showed in the TV yesterday was kind of players that are looked up to from the past, such as Kanu for Nigeria and Drogba for Ivory Coast. Do you think these players have played quite an important role in changing aspirations and focus for these kind of countries now?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. The more players from a country that go and play at higher levels in professional football that go to Europe and what have you, I think that always brings inspiration to others. It makes others see what what they can do and what they can achieve. And I think that helps drive the next generation. I certainly think. I mean, Drogba. I've seen a lot of Drogba here. He's being based around this hotel. I've seen him at stadiums, and you can see he's clearly a hero here, and clearly people. But he's also seems like a very someone who connects to the supporters, someone who connects to his country. The way he connected with people, the way he was trying to get the crowd up during the game the other day in the semi-final, as they got towards the end and he came out to do a TV interview. He's trying to G up the crowd. He's trying to get the crowd going, and you can see he's a huge favourite here in Ivory Coast. And I think that kind of thing does inspire the next generation. But like I say, going back to the whole lifestyle thing, and I don't mean just drinking. I think in terms of nutrition and just generally healthy lifestyles, I've seen that probably here it is different to other parts like Southern Africa, and clearly that'll play a role in producing players and player development and becoming professional footballers. So I think that's been a really interesting eye opener. I think, and as maybe as much as yes, it's to do with football development and maybe in terms of play the physical side of it as well in the West. But I think a lot of it does come down to lifestyle and the way of life here in the West compared to the South and maybe other parts of Africa as well. And that's just been really interesting for me. I think just the whole culture and how the culture plays a part in um, in the way players are produced and developed. I think.
Yeah, excellent. And I mean, I didn't realise you'd had some sightings of Drogba himself, and we are we
Yeah,
are aware we are aware that you've bumped into quite a few football personalities, and you've obviously expressed on social media how fortunate they are to have a photo with you.
yeah.
So, so has there been any kind of standout people that you've bumped into, and for what reasons?
I think I've seen a few. I think I said probably the best one I had, and this will surprise people because he had a bad reputation as a player. Not a bad reputation as a player, but I know he had a bit of a sort of naughty boy attitude a little bit. Was El Hadj, who I'm sure many people will remember from being one of the stars at the World Cup in 2002 for Senegal in that great team of Senegal that beat France. Um, Also, they'll remember him for his time at Liverpool, and I think he did develop a bit of a bad reputation. But I had a nice chat with him here in the hotel the other day, and we were actually sat with him in a bar on Friday night, and just always willing to have a chat. And so for me, he was certainly one of the highlights to be able to speak to him and find out what a nice guy he was. And we talked about me growing up watching Portsmouth, and he was telling me two of his old mates from Senegal how they played there, and how the fans of Portsmouth didn't like him. Certain incidents I remember happened back there. So I mean, we had a really good conversation, and I think he was someone that showed how you can really, if you get to see someone as a human, that maybe they come across completely different than they do on the field. But yeah, Kanu was a nice, obviously again the Portsmouth connection and used to watch Carnu when I was growing up watching Portsmouth. And so that was a good one to meet. Saw JJ Kocher yesterday. It's, bumped into him and I said Rob has been around. And, obviously, the other one is I've been spending a bit of time with the DRC team. So some of the work I do is actually with a sports brand that sponsors the DRC team. So we spend quite a lot of time with them. And the coach of the DRC is a friend of mine. And, but also, yeah, met a couple of their players, good lads. Wisa from Brentford. And a good player. You know, he had a couple of really good games as well for DRC. And, yeah, it's been good. It's been good to get to meet people, and obviously, met like people from PAF as well, and have a good key contact in the football industry. So, I mean, I think that's the thing with these AFCONs is you just get open access to so many people, and so many people who are important to the game have either played a key role in the game or playing a key role moving forward, and seeing how you can work together with them to play a small role in that as well. So I think that's been a real highlight of this, and especially in the last week. Met with a lot of presidents of football associations and had some really good meetings with some good people there. And yeah, I think that's certainly been one of the highlights along with attending the games as well.
Yeah, that sounds really good, and I know for you, you put a priority on kind of wherever you can, really traveling around the country a bit, around the continent, sorry, in order for not just for tournaments like this, but even conferences and networking. And I know that can take a lot out of you in terms of time and energy and cost as well. But it's like it sounds like that you can't really replace those kind of moments of being able to just talk in a room and see opportunities to work together.
Yeah, I think being able to get around and go to tournaments and go to games and visit countries and actually meet people is definitely the way to do it. It's definitely the best way to be able to meet people, build your networks, get things done, talk about new projects, see where people can collaborate to really make a bigger difference. And I think, especially here in Africa, where there's a lot of people wanting to grow the game and play a small role in developing the game. And I think if you all come together and work out how you can work together and make that happen, then you'll see progress. So yeah, I mean, I definitely say it's worth traveling, and it's not easy. I was talking to someone today, spending 2.5 weeks away from home on your own. In a part of Africa I've never been to West Africa before. It's not all glamorous, but it's certainly worth the time and the investment, and well worth it when you get to meet these
people. Yeah, excellent. Sounds good. So I look forward to a good guest list coming up by the sounds of it, of the people that you've been meeting.
Yeah. So I mean, we've certainly got some good people we can get onto the podcast coming up, and looking forward to getting back to our interviews. Obviously, we were hoping we'd get one or two other podcasts done while we were here, but didn't prove easy to do that. But yeah, I think we'll talk a bit more about AFCON as we go forward, and like I say, we'll get some good guests on and get their thoughts on the tournament and then on the development of football in Africa as a whole.
Yeah, brilliant. And I know obviously a couple of your predictions did certainly show a bit of fruit with the likes of DRC and South Africa. Yeah, being able to progress further than probably people expected. But we'll talk about that another day. So just wrapping up, what's your plans now for the next 24 hours? And then what kind of inspiration are you taking home with you for the next few weeks at least?
Yeah, so now here it's coming up to 2 o'clock. So I've got a few meetings this afternoon with hopefully grabbing one or two more FA presidents. I actually got a meeting with one of the players from one of the national teams that made the last four and are still here. So got someone I know, so I'm just going to go and meet with him at his hotel this afternoon. I'm told that they're doing an open top bus parade for the Ivory Coast national team around here this afternoon. Which one might make it harder for me to get around. Second, they need to make sure they don't close all the roads up to the airport this evening, because I'm flying back at 9 o'clock this evening. So hoping for the best on that one. But yeah, hopefully get a little bit more done this afternoon, meet a few more people, and then be able to fly back home overnight and back into Cape Town tomorrow afternoon.
Brilliant. So when you sit back at your desk with your various hats on of Chris Bullock Football and Opus Sports, etc., what kind of inspiration are you taking from these last couple of weeks and going to apply to your work?
I think just more thoughts about how you can collaborate with people to really work on how we can develop the game moving forward, and probably from a football business perspective, and a football development perspective, but being able to work on those collaborations and come up with projects that we think can, that we always say it's going to take more than one or two people to grow football on the continent, but you can see off the back of this AFCON that there's a lot of people doing really good work, and the football is gradually progressing on the continent. And there's enough of us that want to play a small role that together we can maybe play a significant role in that. And I think that the takeaway is to work closely with these people and let's all work together and build on what's happened at this AFCON and keep developing the game on the continent. And hopefully we'll see more and more players coming through from more and more countries that can go on and play professionally and help a few more teams become a bit like what Ivory Coast has done.
Yeah. Well, that's brilliant. So I did say before we wrap up, but I'll just ask a few quick fire questions just to finish off on. But also just to say, I feel quite convinced from what I've seen that we should expect an African team to be in World Cup stage finals, semi-finals, finals really. I'd imagine in the next decade or so. So for my quick fire questions, firstly, tell me a year that you think there'll be an African country in the final of the World Cup. Give me a year.
That's hard. What are we in now? 2024. 2024.
Yeah.
You're saying in the final?
Yeah, semi-finals, final.
Semi-finals. I mean, we did have one 2010, didn't we? But I mean, look, I say a team like Ivory Coast, I think already could go quite far in a World Cup. But I think if you can build on what they've done, you could certainly see one maybe by 2030. I would hope 2030. Certainly by 2034, we could see some of the teams maybe competing further. But as long as we keep growing, as long as we keep building on what's been done in this AFCON.
Brilliant. Next question. Player of the tournament.
Player of the tournament.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Very good question. Because I haven't seen all of the games. I think there's a couple in the Nigeria side that had very good tournaments. The centre back who I think might have got player of the tournament. I haven't seen yet, but I think he did. He has Ekong. He's had a very very solid tournament, and also his threat from set pieces. He scored last night. I thought there were a few boys in that Ivory Coast team that had a very very good tournament. Frank Kessia, that a lot of people will know, had a very strong tournament, the midfielder. I thought they've got a centre back who I thought was exceptional last night, who I believe he does play in the Bundesliga for Frankfurt. To actually pinpoint one, I don't know. There's a left back for DRC. Makumbu looked very very strong as well. So yeah, probably hard to pick out one player, to be honest with you. Certainly some strong performances, but I certainly think a couple of those Ivory Coast players probably, like I said, probably was the two strongest teams last night that were in the final, and probably the strongest team that won the tournament.
Yeah, and there's been quite a bit said about the South African keeper Williams as well.
Yeah. I mean, Williams obviously had a very good tournament. I think a lot of his plaudits have come off the back of his heroics against Cape Verde in the quarterfinals. They say penalties, and then again in the third place playoff the other day. Williams has always been a very solid keeper, very good keeper at the level that he plays at. Obviously, already playing for one of the top sides in Africa. I think he's been solid throughout. He had one quite big error in the third place game the other day that DRC should have scored, and if they'd scored, probably would have gone on and won the game. And I think a few people probably let that one go. But yeah, I mean, probably deserves the goalkeeper of the tournament. And I think a shout out to one of our clients as well, Lawrence Malenga, who, even though he only played in the group stages because Zambia went out, I read a stat yesterday that before the final he was Basically, he was third in the list of goalkeepers for preventing the most goals in the tournament, which I think is outstanding for a keeper who only played 3 games. So,
Yeah.
so that, I think there are some good keepers that have come out and done well, and we're very proud that Lawrence is one of those. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think Williams. I'm not surprised by Williams. I think he's always consistently shown that level for a number of years in the PSL now.
Excellent. Okay. And then final quick round question. And don't disappoint us to tell us that you've been just eating Western food the whole time. What's been your best dish in the last couple of weeks?
If I'm gonna go for the best local dish, I'm gonna tell you just now because I'm gonna have to read it off the menu to remember what it was. Um, yeah, it was a agouti with palm nut sauce.
Excellent.
So it's
Okay.
like a meat dish in a sauce with and they put in the menu on the English version and it's grandmother style, whatever that means. But
Nice. Good.
yeah, yeah.
That sounds very,
Uh,
very tasty indeed.
yeah. But no, it's been really good exploring the culture here. Um, yeah, great place, great country, great people. So really positive experience all in all.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for your time. I know you're busy, so we'll let you get on. But yeah, we'll catch up again once you're back in South Africa.
Fantastic. All right. Okay. Have a good day, and hope all of our listeners have enjoyed the AFCON as well. And we look forward to bringing a lot of guests who will also give a lot of valuable insight after this as well.
Brilliant. All right. Take it easy. See you soon.
Great stuff. You too. Cheers.
Bye-bye.